Buenos días a todos los que están conectados a este sexto conversatorio Arquitectour 2020, evento realizado por Construcciones Planificadas, la W Radio y con el respaldo del Grupo Aval. El conversatorio de hoy se hará en inglés. Preguntas las pueden hacer a través de YouTube o Facebook Live de la W Radio. For me, it's a privilege to have today guests, a friend from Construcciones Planificadas and partner of one of the architect firms more recognized in Asia and the USA. Michael Kaufman is a partner at Getch Partners, leading projects and coordinate large design teams. Since joining the firm in 1979, we have worked across 4 continents on an exhaustive range of assignments, including corporate and commercial office buildings, hotels, residential buildings, and mixed-use complex, as well as academic and institutional facilities, and renovation and reposition assignment. In addition to the Grand Hyatt Bogota, his recent work includes other luxury hotels in Brazil, India, and the USA, and a proposed 305 meters tall mixed-use tower in Dubai. Additional work includes more than 50 renovation and reposition projects spanning early and mid-20th century building through downtown Chicago and other select locations, as well as the in-progress renovation and expansion of the Lion House at Chicago Lincoln Park Zoo. Among his other institutional work was the US 55 exhibition at the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry and Northwestern University new signature music building in Evanston, Illinois. Michael Kaufman received a Bachelor of Science degree in Architecture from the Illinois Institute of Technology. He is a member of the American Institute of Architects, a recognized lead accredited professional, and a former vice president and member of the board of directors at the University Club of Chicago. He is also a past president and board member of the Design Professional Risk Control Group at the Glessner House Museum. From the principal office of Getch Partners in Chicago, good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mauricio, and thank you very much. We're very honored to be invited to this very important group of other architects and to present our work. And I want to thank the Sarmiento organization and you particularly. We view ourselves as good friends of Construcción Planificadas and the Sarmiento organization. And I apologize for not speaking Spanish. Let me, if I could, take 25 or 30 minutes to show you some of our current projects and past projects. Some are in construction, some have been constructed, and others have been are still in design. So a little bit about our firm. We're descended from the practice of Mies van der Rohe. We started in 1938. We have a staff of about 120 people in 3 offices. The leadership is comprised of 6 partners. 2 of them are design partners, Jim Gatch and Paul DeSantis. 2 of them are technical partners, Joe Dolinar and Larry Weldon. And 2 of us are managing partners, James Zhang, who will be taking over the firm in a year or 2, and myself, Michael Kaufman. We have 9 very talented principals based either in China, mostly in the US, each with a different subspecialty. Our offices are located in 3 places. Chicago is our home. Most of our people are right here. We have an office, a good size office of about 25, 30 people in Shanghai, and we have a small office in Abu Dhabi. We focus on 6 key areas, and we are just architects. We do no engineering. We prefer to hire the best engineer for the projects. And those 6 types of building types are commercial, which are primarily office buildings, corporate headquarters. Hospitality, we do hotels and resorts around the world. Residential, a relatively new specialty for us, apartments and condominiums. Mixed-use buildings are typically very large projects. They can be in 1 building or multiple buildings, typically a retail base on which office, hotel, and residential can rise from. As Mauricio mentioned, we do a fair amount of institutional work. It's about 5%, 10% of our work, which is cultural institutions, governmental, higher education. And then I also lead a renovation group that does repositioning, adaptive reuse, restoration, and we've done over 60 projects throughout the United States. Let me talk first about commercial. 150 North Riverside is a project we're very proud of. Jim Getch designed this, and what's unique about it's a fairly large building, 136,000 square meters, 54 stories tall. But what's very unique about this is that it's located on railroad tracks. The city also mandated, it's adjacent to the river, that there be an open river walk. So working with Magnuson Klemensic, a very well-known structural engineering firm, we developed a vertical structure that is only 40 feet wide, approximately 12, 13 meters wide, and all of the load comes down into that. And that allows us to then put a park over the railroad tracks and create a building that you can see here. It's a wonderful addition to the skyline of Chicago, and Jim Getch designed a very innovative solution. A second building that is almost complete is very near the first one. It's across the river. It's 153,000 square meters, approximately the same height, 54 stories, and it has some of the same features. We didn't have to deal with railroad tracks, but we still had to provide a river walk as required by the city of Chicago. And this shows you a good example of how we solved that. In this case, we did not choose to bring down just a core. We were able to bring down columns and collect them at the bottom. 111 South Wacker was another building that we had completed approximately 15 years ago, 135,000 square meters, also in the 53, 54 story range. And what was special about this is that the parking is located above the lobby. And what we did, you can see there's a band of parking in the gray, and we created a ramp, an auto ramp that became part of the lobby and became a design element, and yet created a very unique lobby that we think proves to be a very interesting view. The columns are all gathered and come down into only 8 places for this very large building, but that creates a very open base on what was a very tight and closed site. 300 East Randolph is the home of Chicago's Blue Cross and Blue Shield facility, which is a health insurance company. And they came to us back in the early 1990s, 25 plus years ago, and said, we need to build a corporate headquarters, but we want the ability to be able to add to it. So the initial phase was 132,000 square meters, but the ultimate build out is 218,000 square meters, 57 stories tall. And what we did is we planned in the first phase the positions for the elevator banks that would allow the building to rise to a new height. And you can see in the picture on the left how the first phase is complete, fully occupied, 4,500 employees, and construction of the second phase happened 10 years later and was done while the building was fully occupied. And then you see that middle picture shows you the complete building. And what's happened is that instead of expanding, it turned out Blue Cross Blue Shield found some of the very best tenants in Chicago because this building has a beautiful view of the park. And you can see it here. Millennium Park is in its foreground and how it sites compared to other buildings and the beautiful views from it. We recently completed a project in San Francisco, and this is the Park Tower at Transbay. It's part of a new section of the city. It's only 45 stories and only 75,000 square meters. But what's interesting about this is that this building was fully leased to Facebook before it was complete. So a very good success story for our developers. and a very nice project. San Francisco's climate is a little bit more temperate than Chicago, so what you see are open terraces, which were very attractive to the tenants. They love the ability to be able to have their employees go outside, and here's a good example of that. We built a windscreen so that everyone would be comfortable there, but you're out in the outdoors and it's part of your floor, and it happens every third floor. A different project for us was the Zurich, North America headquarters, about 73,000 square meters. Zurich is an insurance company that does primarily reinsurance, and they're based in Switzerland, but this is their North American headquarters. And what was interesting is that this is sited on an expressway. It's right adjacent to it. And what they ask us to do is we want a billboard. We want, when people are driving on the expressway, that they turn and they look at our building and they can instantly see who we are and that it's something a little bit different. So these are other shots, other sides. And the interior has some open spaces. And you can see the building in the upper right, very innovative. It's a bridge structure that sits on top of two wings and is available to expand. Here are some other photographs within the building and just outside the building, and the concept of that bridge structure. And then the final project. You can see it's very striking, and as you're driving, you instantly realize what the building is, and it captures your attention. A project in the Middle East was for Hilal Bank. This is a simple office tower, 87,000 square meters, only 24 stories, a fairly large floor plate. And they are renting this to commercial tenants. They are only taking a small portion of it. This was purely a development project for them. You can see the large floor plate, column free from the core out to the columns at the edge, which is a hallmark of many of our buildings because that allows for very open planning and easily able to be changed. They wanted a signature for their building as they were going to develop other buildings, and they really like the offset and the special lighting that happens. And they've repeated this now in their logo and in their other buildings. A project that is just completed, one of my projects that I work closely with Jim Getch on, is in Warsaw, Poland. And this is 115,000 square meters, 35 stories. And the building was somewhat shaped because Warsaw has a sun requirement that you cannot shade other buildings for more than a certain number of hours per day. So the building has to be very carefully sited, shaped, so that you can achieve that. And what we did is we broke the building up into two masses. One is the tall mass and one is a shorter mass. This building also is fully leased before it was completed. M Bank, which is a large Polish bank, is taking the tall tower. WeWork took the entire smaller building, as well as a health facility. And you can see it in its completion. Rendering on the left, completion on the right. We do quite a bit of our work, about 60% of our work is in China. And this is an example of a low-rise complex, only 69,000 square meters, but 6 stories tall in Nanjing. And it's a technology campus headquarters. You can see this is a little bit more rectilinear, a little bit more pragmatic. We were moving out of the period in China where it was all wow, everybody wanted to do something different. We've attracted quite a few clients because we're a little bit more practical. The buildings are more efficient, they're easier to construct, etc. Another complex, the Verkaufsco, which is located in Shenzhen, China, just outside of Hong Kong. And this is for 190,000 square meters in 2 towers. You can see a little bit of a different expression. Atriums within the buildings, which offer a lot of interest, and they're mostly located up at the very top of the building, so they have excellent views. Another project, 4 buildings, 4 towers, 273,000 square meters in Guangzhou, China, also not very far, an hour and a half by car from Hong Kong. And 2 towers here, one 30 stories, one 22 stories. I'm sorry, 2 at 30 stories and 2 at 22 stories on a retail base. You can see some of the detailing for that. The retail is particularly interesting. Moving on to our hospitality group. We've done hotels for a long time across the world. This particular project was just recently completed in Chicago for the Viceroy Chicago. Paul DeSantis was the partner designing this project. It's only 14,000 square meters, 18 stories tall, but we were required to keep that vintage base and actually had to disassemble it and put it back in place. And we actually improved it. We finished it. These are shots of the surrounding. This is right in Chicago's prime restaurant and hotel district. And you can see a shot of how we kept just the front facade and created an all-new building behind it, a 2-story restaurant at the base, a private pool area for the hotel guests, and a bar up on top, and a very innovative room situation. Because the exterior changes, every room is just a little bit different. Bathrooms on the exterior wall, and while the rooms aren't very large, they're beautifully appointed. And this was done by a group out of Las Vegas called Tal Studio. They were the interior designers for this. A shot of the rooftop bar and the rooftop pool. And then another one of my favorite projects, the London House project here in Chicago. This is at the intersection of Michigan Avenue and the river, Wacker Drive. It's a 2-part project in the sense that we had an existing building of about 29,000 square meters, and there was a gap between the existing building and the rest of the buildings on this facade. And we came up with a modern infill that takes advantage of views down the river. This is 452 keys, 21 stories, 36,000 square meters total. You can see how it fits within that group of buildings, and it has an absolutely beautiful roof deck with views straight down the Chicago River, which is magnificent all day, and particularly at sunset. You can see people enjoying themselves here. And then, of course, my favorite project in South America, the Grand Hyatt in Bogota, which we worked very closely with Mauricio and his people in the Sarmiento organization. Approximately 76,000 square meters, a large ballroom, junior ballroom, and close to 900 cars of parking below grade. An absolutely gorgeous building that fits within a planned development that had been developed by the Sarmiento organization. And you can see views of the building, a section. A helicopter pad was a requirement at the top. And then the pre-function space to the ballrooms, absolutely beautiful. The pool area, very unusual. And a signature restaurant at the very top offering some of the best views of downtown Bogota and the mountains surrounding it. We're very proud of this project and very proud to have worked with Mauricio and his people. Another project a little bit older, the Grand Hyatt in Sao Paulo, 55,000 square meters, 26 stories, 466 keys. A project that we think is going to stand the test of time and will serve the Hyatt organization and the developer for a long time. The pool at ground level, a fitness center with a connection down to the pool. And then a project that was a renovation, an adaptive reuse within a historic building. The Langham in Chicago is 32,000 square meters, 316 keys, and this is 5-star plus. Langham is a brand that is owned by a Hong Kong owner. He bought the Langham in London and is developing Langham hotels throughout the world. This was his first hotel in Chicago, and it's located in the very bottom, the bottom 13 floors of what was called the IBM building at the time. And this was Mies van der Rohe's final building while he was still alive. It was completed very close to his death. We created an indoor pool, and the rooms themselves are, of course, very clean, very modern, and contain elements of Mies van der Rohe's furniture, etc. So we feel that we captured some of what he was doing. A project in the Middle East, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, is a Hilton and also a residential building. So the total square meters is 111,000 square meters, 21-story hotel, a 14-story serviced apartment core, 645 keys, very large, 221 serviced apartments, also very large. And what's particularly interesting is that there's a 4,500 square meter ballroom, a multi-purpose hall, which accommodates the very, very large weddings, which can last several days in the Middle East. Here are other shots of the project. Some of the projects I worked on in India, the Grand Hyatt Mumbai, 111,000 square meters, the second largest Grand Hyatt in the system when it was completed. It has 547 keys, 110 serviced apartments, and the grounds are modeled after, we work very closely with SWA, which is a wonderful landscape firm in the US. They're modeled on Mughal gardens, which was a period of time in India where the gardens themselves were absolutely beautiful, very structured, very organized, and you can see they're contained water features in many places to create a sense of being in the country while being in the very heart of Mumbai, which is a very dense city and only 1.5 miles from the airport, which is why we had to keep the height fairly low. The second project I completed in India was for the Four Seasons chain. This is also in Mumbai, 23,000 square meters, 202 keys, a smaller hotel, much higher luxury quotient. So this is a true 5-star hotel in Mumbai, and the first Four Seasons in India. We then did a series of hotels and are continuing to in China. This is the Grand Hyatt in Dalian, which is right on the water. This is a port city, 100,000 square meters, 370 keys of hotel, plus 84 serviced apartments at the very top. You can see that organization at the very top of the serviced apartments, a beautiful drive, lovely check-in, and a distinctive building that was designed to accommodate the wind flows that happen in Dalian, being right on the water. You can see some of the views of it being right on the water through that window. Absolutely special site, and we took advantage of that as much as we could. Here are other shots, the pool. The Hotel Capac in Shenzhen, which is a very dense city as well, a technology city, is attached to a sports complex. And this has a more playful exterior, something a little bit different, 27,000 square meters, 260 keys, a rooftop restaurant, so something different. And you can see that large structure that encompasses the exterior. The Hangzhou Marriott in Hangzhou, China, a beautiful hotel, 348 key hotel, 51 serviced apartments, about 93,000 square meters. Other shots of that. And then a resort hotel. This is the Rosewood Sanya, and it's attached to a building we also did, which is the Sanya Forum, which is a conference center. So this is 151,000 square meters, 46 stories, the tallest building on Sanya, 246 keys. Rosewood is a luxury brand, a 5-star brand, 465 serviced apartments. What they anticipated is that many people would want a vacation here for an extended period, so an apartment made sense. There's also a set of villas that you see in the base, and this hotel is organized such that the apartments are on top, the hotels at the bottom. Many of them have beautiful ocean views. Sanya is an island. It's like the Hawaii of China. And you can see here an infinity pool that allows a beautiful view of the water. And then the forum, the conference center is on the right, as well as rooftop amenities. Moving to our residential work. I'm currently working on a project in Chicago that is called One Chicago. It is at the intersection of State Street and Chicago. It's 204,000 square meters, a very large project. We're working in conjunction with another architecture firm, and we are focusing on the very tall tower, the 76-story, almost 300-meter tall tower, which will have 276 rental apartments and then 77 luxury condos at the very top. The second tower, the smaller one, has smaller apartments, and those will approximately 459 units there. This also has at the base a food store that takes an entire block, as well as a 2-story lifestyle center, a sports complex with memberships. And you can see some of the floor plans and a shot of it in progress. Right now we're up to about the 23rd floor. They're pouring one floor every 3 days, and it's continuing very quickly. The base has been completed. An interesting structure, it's top down. So they drilled the caissons and then started excavating below to create 4 levels of parking below grade. And they're still excavating as we're moving up, and that saved 3 months on the schedule. So very important to the owner. We started doing work in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is a luxury rental apartment building, 356 units, 35,000 square meters. An interesting concept of changing planes, rooftop amenities, as are required in all our projects these days. Section showing you what's happening, as well as a typical floor plan. The Paramount is our actually was our first project in Nashville, and it's approximately 66,000 square feet. And this is a condominium project, 65 stories tall, the tallest building in Nashville, Tennessee. This one is also under construction. And here are some of the shots at the base. Very tight site, but will become what we hope will be the premier building in Nashville for condominium living. An example of the floor plate, good-sized apartments rotating around the core. Now moving to our mixed-use buildings. Abu Dhabi, the Global Market Square, was developed from Mubadala, which is a government-sanctioned development firm that has developed millions of square meters. This particular project alone is 530,000 square meters, very large. A 23,000 square meter retail base, 4 office towers that are together approximately 70,000 square meters. And then the building you see in the very center is the financial hub. This is the stock trading center for all of Abu Dhabi. And that shows you an example of what it was. Landscape by Martha Schwartz, a very famous landscape designer, very unusual landscape design. And then the buildings are angled such that there is shade at the right times of day for the lobbies. So because Abu Dhabi is a very warm, very sunny climate, and so Jim Getch designed a building that really allowed for it to respond to its environment. The sunshades on the building are also important for keeping track of that. Here's an example of that trading building. And a shot of the lobby, and shows you how it can be shaded during the day and is very comfortable, protected by trees on one side indoors. A building that we completed design for, the Dubai Mixed Use Tower, 226,000 square meters. This has a small office component, a retail component, and of course, a large parking component, 1,370 parking spaces, as well as luxury apartments on the very top and some condos at the very top as well, based in Dubai, adjacent to Abu Dhabi. Back in China, the summit was done for Tishman Speyer, a well-known American and European developer. This is in a town called Suzhou, China, which is approximately an hour and a half out of Shanghai. And this is a city that when we started work in that city 25 years ago, had a population of about 1.5 million. The population is now 12 million. This particular complex is a total of 150,000 square feet, very pragmatic, very easy to lease, very easy to lay out interior space, and a retail component that spans the street and is connected by a bridge. Other shots of that project. Very simple. Mies, I think, would be proud. RNF in Guangzhou, China, is a building that started off as a lot of mixed use, hotel, residential, office, retail, and in its final iteration has a Park Hyatt, a 208-key hotel at the very top, and then has primarily office space, 114,000 square meters of office space, with a very small 10,000 square meter retail component at the bottom. As the uses changed, so did the wall. You can see at the base, the wall is a little bit different than at the top. There's a good example how it's changing, and the indents at the corners allowed us to understand how that building changed. Other examples of that exterior wall. And the Park Hyatt at the top, a wonderful hotel with beautiful views of Guangzhou, which is an important commercial city in China. Shaconi Square was an early project for us in Chengdu, China, which is towards the western part of China, in the center of the country, 185,000 square meters. But what this is really a large department store of 111,000 square meters with a Grand Hyatt on top of it. The white you see is not stone, it's actually white glass, because this city unfortunately suffered from desert sand, pollution, and other things. They wanted a building that would be white but was very easy to clean, and stayed clean. And here are some shots of it, the hotel, and then the rooftop amenities on the hotel above the retail shopping center. Nanning is a 400-meter tall tower, and you can see the picture on the right. It's virtually complete. It's very close to being topped off, 272,000 square meters, and a Shangri-La hotel at the top, as well as a large amount of office space and some retail. We think this will be a lovely building in Nanning, which is another large city in China. Shots of the detail of how the curtain wall is expressed and how the building changes shape as it goes up. And some nighttime shots. The building is almost complete on the right. A development in Shenzhen, China, 5 towers, a total of 471,000 square meters. These are all, to us, very large buildings, but they've become commonplace in China. Retail base, but primarily office, with a hotel and some serviced apartments. An example of how that's master planned. And then in Shenzhen, China, a tech city, very close to Hong Kong, a mixed-use development for China Hore, which is another developer, 320,000 square meters, three office towers, 162 stories, and the others a lot shorter, around a retail base with a hotel in the 3rd tower. And you can see the tall tower. It's going to have a distinctive shape on the skyline, and the Conrad Hilton at the base. In Wuhan, China, which is the origin of our current issue throughout the world, but has gotten back to normal. This is a project for a developer called Greenland, and it's a 315,000 square meter office tower and a 400 meter tall office tower and a 200 meter hotel and apartment building. Wuhan has recovered nicely, and this is under construction. In Guangzhou, back to Guangzhou, China, the Poly is another one of the large, very influential developers in China. 303,000 square meters, one tower 60 meter, 335 meters tall, and a combination of residential, hotel, and office with a retail base. Another shot of that. And then moving into our fifth, the institutional work that we've created. The Ryan Center for the Musical Arts is located on Northwestern University, and it's located in Evanston, which is just north of Chicago. A small building, but a very complex building, 14,000 square meters, but it has a beautiful recital hall, black box theater, rehearsal rooms, classrooms, faculty offices. It's located right on the water, a very prominent site, a beautiful site. You approach the building. To your right is the performance center. To your left is the majority of the building. And the performance center has a glass back so that as you sit, you have a view directed directly towards downtown Chicago. And you can see outside nature while the people are playing. It's absolutely beautiful. And for acoustical reasons, we created an undulating wood side. All of the wood veneer was taken from simply 2 trees located from Africa, very large trees. They produced a lot of veneer so that it was all uniform. We were also the architects with another architect for Soldier Field, which is our football stadium in Chicago, and the 19-acre park that surrounds it. 62,000 seats, and you can see it on the skyline. We took an existing older building and fit a new football bowl into it. The U-505 submarine exhibit that Mauricio talked about, this was a submarine that was captured by the US during World War II, intact, and brought to Chicago. The submarine is here being lowered into its space, and that space is below grade and obviously below groundwater, but a fascinating exhibit. And then we're working on a lion house. We completed a great ape house for the Lincoln Park Zoo, which is a large zoo within Chicago, a free zoo. And we're redoing an existing building, an old lion house, but creating an all-new exhibit and opening it up so that people will be able to get very close to and see the lions. And we're looking forward to this being complete. It's in construction as we speak. Our renovation studio, which I lead, has done 60 buildings in Chicago. One of the more famous ones is the Wrigley Building. It is across from London House, the project I showed you before, 63,000 square feet. What we did is we completely restored and recreated the lobby. This is not a pure historical restoration. This is a recreation, but we kept a lot of the pieces that were in the building and that we were able to find. Famous architecture firm, Graham Anderson, Probst & White, who from 1910 to approximately 1940 designed many, many beautiful buildings in Chicago. You can see the before on this pass-through arcade. It's actually, the building is 2 buildings connected by 2 bridges. And before it was quite contained and not very attractive. This allows people to flow through and looks much more attractive. 35 East Wacker Drive was a building done in 1926 that we completely renovated. Gave it a brand new lobby, a new lobby that recreated what we found in the original drawings and in some of the renderings we saw for the building originally. Many of these buildings in Chicago were modernized in the 1950s and 60s. They were not attractive. We bring them back to what we think was their original beauty, including the elevator cabs, which were very unique. And then we've started renovating newer buildings in Chicago. 321 North Clark was a building that was done in the early 80s and unfortunately was on the verge of potentially losing some of its major tenants. And it had a beautiful river-facing facade that did not take advantage of it. What we did is we created an extension that moved out to the river. And this shows you what it was before. This was before construction, and this was after construction, where now a very large firm, a restaurant firm in Chicago called Let Us Entertain You, has created two restaurants, two distinct restaurants, and a very large party room. Of more than a room, it's a real facility. I'm going to conclude with one of my favorite projects, which is Chicago's Union Station. This is a train station in Chicago that for years had received no loving care. And it needed everything. It needed new HVAC systems, new elevators, a restoration. And that skylight that you see at the top was unfortunately it was leaking air, it was leaking water, it was doing all kinds of things. This was done by Graham Anderson, Probst & White, that firm I spoke about before. And what we did is we restored the skylight, but then we put a brand new skylight 5 feet above it that protected it from the elements, so that from underneath, you saw no difference. It still looked like the original, but it was now completely weatherproof and thermally much improved. Heat wasn't being lost all the time. And then we restored all the plaster work, the paint work, the limestone, all of that was restored during this project. So with that, Mauricio, I'm sorry if I hope I didn't take too long, but please, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Michael. It's for this inspired presentation, this amazing project that you are doing around the world. It's amazing. So we are going to begin the answer and question session. I have a first question to you. For Michael Kaufman, what is architecture?
In 2000, my family is from France. And interestingly enough, in 1968, I was 13 years old, and we had a family reunion in Spain. And when I watched them actually build a building, a residential building, all summer. We were there for 2 months. And I determined at that point that I wanted to be part of construction, design, and everything to do with architecture and construction. So that's why architecture for Michael Kaufman.
Wow. How is the Getch Partner Studio? We see that that's an amazing project that you are doing around the world. How is the function of your office? You have other offices around the world. How you work, and when you begin a project, how you do it?
What we do right from the very beginning is that we assign 2 senior people. It's typically a design partner. It could be Jim Getch, it could be Paul DeSantis. And then there's also a managing partner, like myself and some others. And those 2 people guide the project. We then add senior technical architects, senior designers who work with us, a specification writer, and then junior architects who work with that team. And so when we're working overseas, for instance, we will be teamed with, we always look to team with a local architect and local engineers whenever possible, unless it's a very specialized building, a very tall building, then maybe US structural engineers would be involved. But that's how we comprise our team. We try and hold weekly meetings with the local architect and engineers throughout the process, and the owner, so that we know what we're doing and we're getting consensus as we go. But it's that core team of a senior designer, senior manager who lead those teams.
And you have offices in other parts from Chicago?
We primarily do most of our projects from Chicago. So the design is all done in Chicago. The technical, for instance, in China, we only go through design development. We don't go there. We're teamed with a local firm called an institute, which typically has thousands of architects, thousands of engineers, and we're teamed with them, and we've discovered the ones that we like to work with, and we recommend those to the owners. And we will go through design development primarily in the US, but partly in China now. We're starting to build that design process in China. And we have two partners, James Zhang, who was born in Shanghai but lives in the United States, and Paul DeSantis. Those two gentlemen are frequently in China for 3 weeks out of every month. They travel there, except now, which it makes it a little bit more difficult. But they typically travel there, and we'll have meetings with all the clients and all the architects and engineers in China.
Okay. What is the trajectory of being the new generation of the original office of Mies van der Rohe? You have like the grandfather of Getch Partner firm, actually, it's Mies van der Rohe. How it's this generation trajectory to become Getch Partner actually?
Mies was our founding father, and his logic in buildings is a part of us. It's part of our philosophy. We don't believe in building buildings that don't function well. So that stays with us. However, the truth is that for our younger generations, we're designing perhaps as Mies might have evolved. We're not completely tied to the Miesian concept. We believe that a building should be appropriate to its site, to its country, to its location, or environment. And we're very sustainable. That's another thing that has changed over the past 10, 15 years. Virtually all our buildings, whether they're LEED Platinum, like the Zurich office building is, or LEED Gold, like many of our office buildings are, or they have no LEED whatsoever, we still design in sustainability. So that's the key to some of our young people. They're very interested in that, and we're encouraging that.
Okay. A question that all architects have: why Chicago has been the birthplace of most of the famous architects in American history?
Yeah, we're very lucky. I was lucky. I came to school here at Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. I was from the East Coast of Chicago, which is also very well known for architecture, but it became very clear to me that Chicago is the center of architecture in the United States, at least for me. And I love our city here in Chicago. We're very lucky to have Frank Lloyd Wright, who started his practice here, and of course, Mies van der Rohe. So we've been fortunate that this is still an architectural city that now exports a lot of our work to the rest of the world.
Okay. What is the importance of innovation in the architect firms? What is the importance of innovation to reinvent?
For us, very important. Not just reinventing. It's not that we're creating a new architecture every Monday, and Mies actually said you can't create a new architecture every Monday, but staying current with trends. We have a strong technical group. We're not just design architects the way some firms are. We're very strong technically as well. We have a group that designs exterior enclosures, curtain walls, etc. And they are always pushing the envelope with new glass, which is more energy efficient, new assemblies, which are thermally broken, but are still efficient to erect. And so we push the envelope on the exterior, so to speak. We're pushing innovation there all the time. And then we're working with the very best consultants, both on engineering, on vertical transportation, all of those things. We're always working to refine and make every building better than the one before. So innovation is a big part of that. We're also lucky in that we're starting to attract the very best of young architectural designers, being led by Paul DeSantis and Jim Getch, but they are starting to influence how we're innovating in design. So we're moving towards newer, fresher, and better buildings.
Okay. In these pandemic times, this is a question that that I have to do it. What is the importance of networking in your office?
We, within 1 week of being told that we could no longer come to work, that was in March, we established Zoom accounts for every single employee so that we could hold Zoom meetings anytime, anywhere. And I can tell you that we're all getting a little tired of Zoom, but we're going to have to continue for a while longer. But that's how we're networking. The China studios, because there's a large 13, 14-hour time difference, we've had to adapt. Our president, James Zhang, is frequently on the phone with clients or in a Zoom presentation at 3 a.m. for us. The rest of we're all sleeping. He's working very hard. Paul DeSantis, the same thing. So our senior people, internationally, we're working. And when we've become very interconnected, and what's very interesting is that we've remained relatively efficient being able to do that. The only part that is less efficient is the day-to-day design. That we still prefer. You sit around a table, you do a sketch, you turn it over, you explain it. That's a little harder to do on Zoom. You have to do a sketch, scan it, send it, discuss it. It takes longer. But otherwise, we've tried to be very interconnected. We've been very interconnected with our Shanghai office. We've always had an internet connection so that we could just from our normal phone call them anytime. That's been the case for the past 5 years. But now we're even more connected visually.
Okay. What is your experience, how you feel this experience to work in project in South America? We see the project that you've done with us in Bogota, the project that you do in Brazil. So what is the experience of working in South America?
Well, what we really love about South America, A, the people are wonderful, but B, it's the same time zone or very close to the same time zone. So when I'm calling you at 10 a.m. in the morning, it's 10 a.m. in the morning for you. It's not 8 o'clock at night. So that's a real plus. But what we love is that, and it boils down really to people. That was my experience in India as well. The people that I dealt with there were delightful. And there's a lot of practicality in South America. That's what I've seen. In China, they were more willing to spend money on wow. In South America, both our Sao Paulo and our Bogota projects, I think are beautiful, but they're efficient, they're well constructed, and I think that's a difference that South America separates itself a little bit from some of our other projects.
Okay. How you see the new office buildings?
We've had a lot of discussions about that. We're building several office buildings here in Chicago right now. Fortunately, many of them are leased already. I think what's going to happen with office buildings is that the space per person will get bigger. There will be more room between one person, especially in the open office plan. Offices are fairly safe, so we don't see a big change there. So law firms will continue to be very similar. Entry to the building will be totally touch-free. Our building in Warsaw, for instance, was already cutting-edge technology. You walk in and you don't have a key card, you have your phone. And your phone gets you through security. It shows you with destination dispatch what elevator you're going to take. You don't have to press any buttons. You don't have to touch anything. It takes you right to your floor. The other change is going to be in HVAC, where I think we're going to see more fresh air. We're going to see higher air changes happening. We're going to see better filtration. And I think all of those things together, we're starting to brainstorm with some owners of older buildings and new buildings, how that's going to take place. So that's being implemented.
Okay, this question is similar. You have a lot of experience in luxury hotels around the world. How you see the future of the hotels, of these luxury hotels?
I think that there is a large group that will continue to support luxury hotels. And I don't see a lot of changes for those. we have to get through this pandemic. We have to get vaccines and the world settles down like we did after SARS, like we did after many others. And once that happens, I think there will not be major changes. People still want a unique experience, and luxury hotels can offer that. A regular hotel is wonderful, it's efficient, but it's typically not very unique. Whereas a luxury hotel gives you the opportunity to set a sense of place and a feeling that when you're there, you're part of something that's a little bit unique, maybe to that city or maybe to that country. And so I think luxury hotels will continue to flourish. What will change, I think, is that there will be less business travel. I think we've seen that Zoom meetings work well. We're probably not going to travel as much, even after everything is safe. I think it'll be just more economical to do a Zoom meeting. There will always be some face-to-face, but less of it. And so that's where I think luxury hotels will do fine. There will always be the vacation traveler and the high-end business person.
Okay. We have some questions of people that are writing just now.
Okay.
One question that sent Felipe, your buildings are characterized by a main use of glass facades. What can you tell us about the preference of this material on your designs?
What we're finding is that the energy codes in every city are changing. Chicago is a perfect example. And in order to meet the energy code, you need to have less vision glass. We've always done double glass, thermal pane windows. In some cases, we're going to triple glass. But what we're also doing is that we're focusing, the building looks very glassy, but the truth is only 40% is vision glass. The rest of them are window boxes that have the very same glass so that it looks consistent. But so we strongly believe that when you're inside a building, you should be able to see out and have that connection to either the city or to nature or to whatever. So we're continuing with as much glass as we can efficiently create for the new energy codes.
Okay. Another question that they sent us, your office specializes on very high buildings. This means that Get partners believe on a dense, compact, and high city model rate than a low density and expansive city?
What we've discovered whenever energy analysis is done is that the denser the city, the more energy efficient it is. There's less expenditure of transportation, for instance. There's less, and you can create mass transit, which is much more efficient than everyone getting into their car and driving to work. So we are true believers in dense cities, and we're working in possibly the densest country in the world, in China, where cities, a 20 million person city, normal. They've got so many of them, it's scary. And so density is important there. And what we've discovered is that we think it's positive for the future because you can get more people for less energy in a more efficient environment by going taller and denser.
Okay, another question that Christina sent to us. In your construction through the world, which country is the most demanding in structural requirements? I think I know your answer.
You know, what we've just, in the early days, China was not very restrictive, but they had a few issues. We think that actually around the world, the structural requirements are becoming very similar. So from pure structure, it's similar everywhere. There are some cities, though, that are very difficult to meet the zoning requirements or to meet environmental requirements, energy efficiency. And those are harder cities to work in. So San Francisco, for instance, a difficult city to work in. Warsaw, Poland, amazingly very difficult because of the sun issue. Europe as a whole is a difficult place to work because of so many restrictions. We found we love South America because there's a little bit less restriction for us. It seemed like that was more normal. They were more practical.
Okay, okay. I was thinking that you're going to say Bogota is one of the most restrictive instructional requirements.
No, Bogota, I mean, the structural engineer did a great job. That was, for us, easy. An easy job.
Michael, a last question. Thank you for your time. From your experience, what you can tell about people that are thinking to run a new architect office? What is your what you can tell these people or these new architects that are hoping to have to run an architect office?
I can tell you that while the profession is very hard, it's not rewarded the way other professions are. For instance, attorneys make, from a financial point of view, much better compensated. But I can tell you at the same time that the real rewards in architecture are watching buildings being built, are watching something that you designed or you worked on that's going to be in existence for 50 to 100 years. And I think that's the real reward of architecture. What should those people do to become architects and or start a new firm? Unfortunately, architecture firms are totally dependent on clients. And so I would say that if you start your career at a large firm, that you should develop good relationships with your clients. Because if it turns out that they really like working with you, you can start your new firm and perhaps they may give you a small project to start. And that's what you really need. Clients are the key. And good clients like the Sarmiento organization are very important.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much for this inspired talk we have today. And we wish the best for you, your family, and Getch Partners people. I hope soon we can meet and drink a good wine.
A good wine would be wonderful. That would be delightful. Thank you so much, Mauricio, for having me.
Thank you. A todos los seguidores, muchas gracias. Y los invitamos el próximo martes 14 de julio al 7º conversatorio con el diseñador de interiores chileno Sergio Echeverría Edwards. Les recordamos que todos los conversatorios están en la página de Facebook Live de la W o la página www.construccionesplanificadas.com/arquitectour. Muchas gracias a Construcciones Planificadas, a la W Radio y a Grupo Aval por hacer posible este evento Arquitectour 2020. Que pasen un resto de semana muy feliz. Hasta luego. Chao.
Chao.